So when we talk about cybersecurity, I'll go through a few trends. Stop me as you see fit. There's a lot of analysis which goes into all of this. So at one point, ransomware was rising and shooting through the roof. That stopped. Any takers? Why? So few reasons. So that stopped. On the consumer side, it's dropping like a stone. On the enterprise side, it is going up. The cardinality of attacks is dropping overall, but the dollar amounts of attacks moves up. The attack vectors, the attack styles, are very much dictated by economics. Basic, simple economics, nothing else. So I can already tell you, Bitcoin mining will slow down, crypto mining will slow down as Bitcoin mining becomes exponentially harder. 2020, I can already tell you, the number of regular malware attacks will actually slow down. Any takers? Why? Because the same actors will be working the politics and the elections. And it's not a joke. It's not a joke. It's the same actors, same set of techniques, and it's not the important part. You have a truth, regular machine learning. More training, more models, more data, you asymptote to the truth. Suddenly, the cheese moves. Every time you come closer, the cheese moves. Because it's not that machine learning is just our thing. The attackers are model extracting the software, the test kits and test beds, which extract our models, try to find that one hole to bypass and go through. So big things from 2016 to now. The payouts in consumer have dropped. During the Eternal Blue, Petya, some of these attacks, a lot of the key management, a lot of attackers moved in, and a lot of the key management started to fail. So imagine I encrypted your files, but I confused the key with her files. So obviously it doesn't decrypt. And this caused about 50% of people who paid for Petya did not get their actual files back. There was confusion. This destroyed ransomware in the US in a big way. Second, embarrassment. 2016 to now, we live in a post-embarrassment world. I'm not making it is true. If I told you, say Ram, I'm picking on Ram because I happen to know him. Ram, I've got naked pictures of you. In 2016, he would pay a lot more. Today, he might say, go ahead. Jeff Bezos did. So we live in a post-embarrassment world. And a lot of places you're seeing that extortion is not working. Consumer, your emails are elsewhere, your files are in Box and Dropbox. Suddenly the laptop is not that important. So what is important? Your data center. If I encrypt your production database, you cannot function. So attacks are moving. What has that done? Let's break this through. A lot of the attacks now, which were Windows-specific, have declined in price. If you looked at the crypto dark web prices of attacks, those are declining. What is going up? The server side. You need attacks on Linux. All variants of Linux. You need attacks on the open source, and that is why open source is shooting through the roof. MongoDB, Apache collections, Log4j, any vulnerability. How do attacks work today? Imagine I'm targeting you. I will pre-collect inventory. He's using this version of Nginx, this version of Apache, this version of Log4j. I pre-collect inventory. He's all patched up. Absolutely nothing I can do. I will sit and wait for 9 to 12 months until on NVD, there's a new vulnerability disclosed by a PhD. He will get the notification at the same moment that I do. The sample code that comes with attacks, typically a PhD, to be respectable, will provide a sample code, which on Linux will multiply numbers, on Windows will pop up a calculator. Now, if you swap that line out with whatever's your desired payload, network neighborhood investigation, ransomware encryption payload, some reconnaissance payload, whatever is your, swap that line out, I will probably beat you to patching with swapping that line out. So Equifax. What we know is a large number of people were hacked. What most of us don't know is in the first 24 hours, there were 30 groups that were inside. And then it is a battle who claims the hill. The kit for claiming the hill properly, because it's highly automated. Please.
That chart there can be resolved partially by the trend that corporate is making more money.
That is true.
And
that is true.
Workers making less.
That is true. Since 1968 or 69, if you economists, I find it amazing. You probably saw the same chart. Corporate profits have been going up. Until 1968 or 69, it went up together. Then it flattens. And the corporate profits keep going up. So, and the flattening is not the full story, though. Excellent point. The flattening is not the full story. The fewer workers in that total money. So it's a lot more IT jobs, but on a global scale, what would happen if, say, we turned around and said everyone in Silicon Valley will double everyone's pay? What do you think would happen? You would feel no richer. All of us would turn around and compete for the same homes from Milpitas to San Francisco, San Jose to San Francisco. Home prices would double or quadruple. You would be no richer. So that's on the social level. That was an aside. So race conditions, a lot more attacks. If you hear cow and talk cow is copy on write. So you make a copy and try to write on the copy. A pointer has to be created and moved. Before it's moved, if someone manages, they overwrite things. That was Docker Doomsday. It's a race condition. Talk cow, time of check to time of use. A lot of things are race condition oriented. Race conditions work better where it's many cores, because I can get many things to race, hopefully one of those. So data center attacks are through the roof. So you will see a lot of cybersecurity where the number of elements, if you're talking containers, actually don't have to go too deep into this, Docker containers, the number of Docker containers is growing. The number of Scrum teams is growing. One of the places people persist increasingly are in configurations. And this is how attacks are going. The new OS is kind of the orchestrator plus your Linux or Windows, Kubernetes, and Docker. That's your full surface. And then you've got source code. Key changes. No discussion of cyber defense is really complete without understanding the attacker side. On cyber defense, we started not only doing anti-malware, which is finding the globally bad, we started saying we'll collect all data of all events with EDR. Attackers move to automate the attack, because now if you're going to do endpoint detection and remediation, the attack campaign cannot take 5 days, because you will catch me in 5 days. I can't accomplish my goal. I better move faster. So the automation is tremendous. 7 minutes. There's a lot of usage of Active Directory, but crypto mining right now is high. We expect it to go down. So this is the essence of the zero trust and personalized security. What we have said, if you look at the recall precision, above 99% or so, we say these are terrible things. We will just kill those processes because there's no good legitimate reason to do this. What about 98% to 75%? That's pretty bad still. But we are not confident enough for risk of false positives. What we have done so far has been global good and bad with low false positives. The key thing that I wanted to talk today, it's not really fully there in any product, partially there in some Symantec products. Journey. It's personalized security. Let's give an example. Encryption. Is it good or bad? You should encrypt all your stuff. But when ransomware encrypts, also using the same on your product encryption standard tool, suddenly it's not good. It is the full context. It's not the final executable. Should you have fancy fonts which make really cool Bezier curves for all the letters? Probably. It's a good thing. What if that has side effects which buffer overflow, take over the kernel? Probably not. Suddenly it's a very nuanced thing. There are no goods and bads in complete story. What we have built so far is on big data machine learning. What probably beyond that, the next frontier is the small data of personalized security, where we go. He has never used PowerShell in 20 years. And I've seen him on his computer. It's legitimate PowerShell instructions. In the same company, RAM uses PowerShell. Maybe it's okay for RAM, but on his machine, we should do something. May not be fully kill. Could we do a multi-factor auth? So in the world of anti-malware pre-mobile devices, what we said was, the only hammer we have is a big hammer. We kill the process. Very drastic, very dramatic. We could do something different. And that's where the frontier goes. Can we multi-factor auth? If it's super critical, we are getting a multi-factor auth when you are in a completely bizarre location, maybe, say, very near the KGB site your geolocation shows, or near, say, China PLA. Suddenly it's like, okay, maybe he's kidnapped. Is there multi-factor where we verify with something else, some other corroborating data? So we need tools. So at 99.5 and up, we can kill. The whole game is below 99.5, or 9, where the threshold where we kill, 275. What do we do there? We need context. Excellent. Very good. See, I don't even have to bribe people these days. I love it. Just a t-shirt. Virtual t-shirt, because I have no t-shirts to get. So run restricted. We have context. So it's not encryption, but who was the encryptor? Who's the calling chain? A document can do some active action. PDF can do action script. Word can do VB script, but not when you download it as an attachment out of Outlook. Not when you just came off of the web and I've never seen you before. Not when you're trying to get Active Directory credentials from it. You can get Active Directory credentials, but not in this chain. So the full context, it's a full court press. So monitor and domain. The second part is 99% of the time, the point of landing is not the destination, is not the pot of gold. So people pivot, attackers pivot. When they pivot, I'm still not on this slide. I move to urge myself also to get to the next slide. So the way people pivot is get Active Directory credentials. And Active Directory, if guarded properly, will often quarantine the attacker on the point of landing. Today, it's a soft shell. You come through the firewall, you've landed on one spot, you can move very freely. Admin hunting, what other places? An Active Directory discloses a lot. What else is cyber attack moving to? If you look at the large 4 actors, probably 6 actors. Of course, US, Israel have own modes of operation. The other modes of operation. North Korea has a mode of operation. China has a mode of operation. Russia has a mode of operation. Iran, Syria, that region has a mode of operation. Thank you. So the modes of operation, actually Iran's operations for some time used to be DDoS. They take over your website, say, I admit I've been an idiot to oppose the Ayatollah or whatever. So it was humiliation. Sure, your pride is hurt, but no lasting pain, no lasting damage. That has changed in the last year and a half. They're using much more A-grade malware. That's why the DDoS, except in the gaming, is on a decline. What you're seeing is A-grade malware, and what crossed it over? Any takers? What brought A-grade malware? No, Stuxnet we'll come to that a little later. It's actually the Chechen rebels. Some of them, they understand Russian, A-grade malware, and they helped train, and you see a dramatic improvement in the last year and a half. So this is fascinating. Anyway, now Russian, you typically don't really know that much about Russian cyber attacks. Why not? It's very targeted, it's very pinpointed, and it's increasingly against a lot of the cyber physical space. It's not just your machine information. It is a kill switch on your power grid, on your sewage system. So when you flush your toilet, know that that water does not take it all the way to the final destination drainage. The actuators. If the actuators start going backward, it will flood water back into your home. So when we look at how the industry has moved from smart factories, which are increasingly smart manufacturing, which was more hydraulics than smart factories, and then you come lights out manufacturing. This has probably taken away more jobs than any of us can imagine. Huge things, just a few computers, no humans working very efficiently. But now it's cyber physical. It is completely controlled. It's much more ML, much more AI, and that is different. And the warfare, when you have convenience to remote control things, an attacker can get that convenience too. So you cannot slow down because you're in a rush to advance and innovate, and the attacker gets that kill switch. And you don't, as an attacker, have to let someone know that I'm turning it off right now. You don't have to. I can simply hint to you that maybe I have control to your power grid system, which will cause you to behave in a more benign fashion with me. So it's like a game of water polo where it's very calm on the surface and it's fierce warfare below the surface. What are the attack vectors? I'm going to rush through a little. The primary attack vector, there's a whole host. It's becoming more and more and more. You're orchestrating large fleets. When you're orchestrating large fleet, you don't want to hack into 20,000 robotic arms. What you want as an attacker is to control the whole fleet through the orchestrator. There's an orchestrator. You don't want to hack into every EC2 instance in an AWS. You want to get the AWS credential and control the entire VPC, because now you can do it at scale. So the orchestrator vulnerabilities are skyrocketing in price. So a good way to think about it, IT and OT are getting connected. Suddenly the point of landing, your laptop, was giving information to documents through a SharePoint. Now there may be a way to pivot to the entire control system and robotic arms and gates and things like that. Just as an aside, it came to me, it's not directly connected. I don't personally like fingerprints. The reason, it's 125 point for your fingerprint. Passwords get compromised all the time. 125 points, how long does it take to get compromised? And once it gets compromised, what do? There's not a good way to change it. If you Google around, you'll see that some criminals have tried dipping their fingers in acid. The fingerprints that come back are the same ones. So what are you going to do? I will rush over some of this. So whole lot of major attacks on the cyber side. It's in the OT, operational things, it's about kill switch, sabotage. It's not about information. Please go ahead.
So in your previous slide, was there an occurrence of OT type of interference in the US and any damage done from it?
Plenty, yes. Okay, I will share only one. It's an interesting one. So when NotPetya was done, plenty, first off, it's disclosed in limited degree. NotPetya, when that happened, it shut down Mondelez Foods and Oreo cookies manufacturing for a few days. It was an attack even Russia intended at Ukraine. But the networks were not segmented. Many of us have IT shops which are operating out of Ukraine that cascaded back to the US and UK. But there are more. There are several more. I will only be able to talk to a few here. So Shamoon, you've probably heard, oil and gas, which just wiped out. So you may do years of research into where to mine, where to drill, and someone could just take it away. So it's actually economically more profitable to do this than to send troops to a war. That's kind of the old-fashioned way of warfare. So in OT, one very interesting thing on say Stuxnet has frequency converters. So do Siemens, where roller coasters are running. They're all legitimate frequencies, just that in the context of a roller coaster, you shouldn't spin kids at the speeds you spin uranium for enrichment. So the context is very important, and that's not something a manufacturer can give to you because they don't know your context. So there's going to be probably a lot of customization in the context of personalization. It's not that they're violating and taking over Siemens altogether. They're using it in an operating outside the operating range. Say they're little cars, okay? The cars can move left to right all over, but if they come very hard in opposing directions, they collide. So suddenly it's not just the context is very important. And it's non-trivial. It's layered, multiple countermeasures, behavioral tuning, scalable. How do you scale it over a whole fleet? Anomaly detection. How do you not inconvenience in it? It's always a competition of convenience versus security. I was going to make a more dramatic end, but for that I need something on this laptop. You must never deny someone all the efforts to make it dramatic. Yes. This is the theme song of Good, Bad, and Ugly. And when we look at it, every layer of convenience has had its countervailing attacks on cyber side. Our convenience competes with security. There are impersonation attacks as the operating systems and everything closes down. There are impersonation attacks which become you. So it has access to everything that you have access to. It has access to your garage door, to every piece of information. Orchestrator vulnerabilities are on the rise, taking over entire fleets. You're no longer hacking into individual EC2s, no longer hacking into individual robotic arms. There are supply chain attacks on the HVAC for a target HVAC vendors, because it's not just your cybersecurity, but your contractors and your employees elsewhere remotely from a Starbucks or from every other place. There's a shift left of attacks where the attackers are getting things into source code. Industrial IoT is a major frontier. Your laptops have less and less. Your data centers, your industrial IoT, it's a major, major frontier. And the kill switches there are huge. What we are allowed but not really intended is to harden the system in the context. It's non-trivial. The robotic arms can move up and down. Maybe it shouldn't go too far down. It'll crush something in context. The network segmentations will be key. And don't forget the malicious insiders. That's on the rise. As attackers find a lot of cybersecurity tools, sometimes the simplest thing is the human factor. We forget, we make mistakes. Maybe when we look at the whole ecosystem, the attacks are global. It's moving from Ukraine to Mondelez Foods, shuts down cookies manufacturing and a whole lot of things. It does more than that. Overall, the future of war and peace is that we are eternally at war and eternally at peace in a mishmash of cyber attacks and cyber defense. Stay safe. Thank you.